The village of Obil lay in the arms of a wide forest, where the palms grew tall and straight as spears. The people of Obil were farmers and hunters, but their true pride was their palm wine. Travelers from neighboring towns often said, "Obil's wine is sweeter than rainwater after Harmattan, thicker than milk, and whiter than the clouds." At the heart of this fame stood Okoro the palm wine tapper. Okoro was a man of middle years, with legs as strong as iroko roots and arms that seemed carved by the machete itself. At dawn, he would stride through the village with a coil of climbing rope slung over one shoulder, his machete gleaming in the sun, and his gourd calabashes rattling softly against each other. Children chased after him, laughing, trying to mimic his long confident strides. By midday, while the sun burned like hot iron, Okoro was already at the tops of the tallest palms, balanced with ease that made other tappers marvel. He tied his rope, cut into the tree with swift precision, and set his calabash to collect the flowing sap. By dusk, when the women were lighting fires and the men were returning from their farms, Okoro returned with his shoulders wet, his chest broad, and 6 calabashes filled to the brim. Other tappers brought home 2, sometimes 3. But Okoro, 6. Always 6. And his wine never turned sour. The villagers adored him. "Okoro's wine is blessed," they said, raising cups high at weddings, festivals, and naming ceremonies. "The gods have placed sweetness in his hands." But where there is praise, there is also envy. Some villagers muttered in low tones. Old men whispered in the moonlight. Mothers warned their children not to wander near the forest where Okoro walked. How can one man's wine remain sweet in Harmattan, when the trees of others go dry? They asked. What does Okoro whisper to the trees when he presses his ear against their trunks? Why does he return from the forest long after midnight, when even hunters avoid the paths? The story spread like bushfire. A farmer swore he saw Okoro's shadow stretching unnaturally long against the moonlight, even when he stood still. A group of children claimed that when he passed by, the village dogs tucked their tails and refused to bark. Hunters muttered that the forest birds fell silent when his whistle floated across the trees. His apprentice, Emeka, heard all these tales. Emeka was a wiry boy of about 15, restless as a goat and curious as a squirrel. His job was simple: to carry ropes, wash the calabashes, and sometimes climb the smaller palms. But his heart burned with questions. Each time he asked his master why his wine was sweeter than any other, Okoro would laugh, showing white teeth that gleamed in the firelight. "One day you will know, my boy," he would say. "But knowledge comes with a price." Those words gnawed at Emeka. What price? Why was Okoro's fortune greater than all? The boy's curiosity grew until it was like a stone pressing against his chest. He lay awake at night, staring at the thatch roof, listening to the distant croak of frogs, thinking of his master's words. One evening, as the sun sank into the hills and painted the sky in red and gold, Emeka made up his mind. He would follow. That night, the village lay quiet. Fires burned low, and the only sounds were the steady chorus of crickets and the occasional cry of an owl. Emeka wrapped himself in a dark cloth, his breath sharp in his throat, and crept after Okoro, who walked silently toward the forest. The deeper they went, the thicker the shadows became. The palms loomed like black giants. The air was heavy with the smell of wet earth. Emeka's heart pounded, but his legs carried him forward. At last, Okoro stopped at the edge of the swamp, before the tallest palm tree Emeka had ever seen. Its trunk rose into the sky, dark against the pale moon. Instead of climbing, Okoro laid down his calabash and machete. Then he began to whistle. It was not a song Emeka knew. It was broken, jagged, like the cry of a Niger caught in its throat. The sound slithered through the swamp, chilling Emeka's bones. The ground stirred. From the roots of the palm tree, from the shadows of the swamp, figures emerged. They were tall and thin, their skin glistening like wet bark. Their arms were long enough to scrape the earth, their eyes glowing faintly like hollow lanterns. They moved like men, but their steps bent too far, as if their bones were reeds. Emeka's breath caught in his chest. Spirits. Okoro bowed low before them, as though greeting old friends. They circled him, whispering in voices that rustled like dry palm fronds. Then Okoro lifted a small clay pot. Inside was not palm wine. It was blood, red, thick, and steaming in the night air. Okoro poured it at the root of the palm tree. The tree shivered. Its trunk glowed faintly, as though fire ran inside it. Thick, white sap began to drip, more than any tree could ever yield, filling Okoro's calabash with a sweetness that could only be unnatural. The spirits hissed in delight. One bent close, whispering into Okoro's ear. From the shadows, Emeka gasped. The spirits turned sharply, their glowing eyes fixing on the boy's hiding place. Okoro's voice rang out, calm but heavy. Come out, Emeka. You followed me. Emeka stumbled out of the shadows, his legs trembling like yam leaves in the wind. The spirit's hollow eyes followed him, glowing brighter as he stepped into the moonlight. He could feel their gaze pressing against his skin, cold and sharp as a knife. Master, what are these things? Emeka's voice cracked, his chest rising and falling like a trapped bird. Okoro's shoulders sagged. His usual confident smile was gone, replaced by a face lined with tears Emeka had never noticed. These, Okoro said slowly, are the keepers of the palm. Without them, the trees would yield nothing. Many seasons ago, when I was still young and desperate, I made a pact. He lifted the clay pot, its rim still stained with steaming blood. Blood for wine. Life for sweetness. That is why my calabashes overflow when others run dry. The spirits shifted around them, whispering like dry leaves in the wind. The tallest one, taller than any man, its arms long enough to drag across the ground, bent forward, its voice rattling like broken wood. The boy has seen. The pact must bind him too, or silence him forever. The words cut through the night like a blade. Emeka's knees buckled. No, he cried, falling to the ground. Master, please. I want no part of this. The spirits hissed, their glowing eyes narrowing. Okoro stood still, his fist clenched. He had always feared this moment, the reason he never truly wanted an apprentice. Secrets like his were not meant for another soul. But fate had brought Emeka here, and the spirits demanded balance. Okoro looked at the boy, trembling in the dirt. Emeka, if you walk away now, they will follow you until your last breath. Their hunger never forgets. But if you accept, the forest will feed you as it has fed me. Tears streamed down Emeka's face. He shook his head violently. I cannot. I would rather drink bitter wine than carry this curse. The spirits hissed louder, their voices rising like a storm. The tallest spirit stretched its long, twisted arm toward the boy. Its fingers were like roots reaching for soil. Okoro stepped between them, his eyes blazing. Enough. You will not touch him. Take me instead. The swamp went silent. The spirits recoiled, their glowing eyes narrowing. After a long, heavy silence, the tall one spoke again. So be it. When the moon bleeds full, your blood shall flow into the roots. The pact ends with you. One by one, they melted back into the swamp, their whispers fading into the croak of frogs and the buzz of night insects. The glow left the palm tree. Only the faint drip of ordinary sap remained. Emeka collapsed into the mud, gasping. Okoro lifted him gently, his rough hands surprisingly tender. For the first time, Emeka saw tears glisten in his master's eyes. "Why did you save me?" Emeka whispered. Okoro looked away, his voice low. "Because no secret should chain another soul. I chose this path, not you." From that night on, everything changed. Okoro no longer whistled to the spirits. He climbed palms like any other tapper, but his calabashes grew lighter, his wine ordinary. Traders who once traveled miles to Obil now shook their heads and went elsewhere. The villagers whispered that his fortune had ended, that the gods had turned their backs on him. But only Emeka knew the truth. He watched his master grow quieter, his once bright eyes dimming. The man who had carried the pride of Obil now walked the village paths like a shadow. And then, on the night of the full moon, the sky bled red. The air grew thick, and the forest howled with unseen voices. Without a word to anyone, Okoro took his machete and calabash and walked into the swamp. Emeka followed at a distance, his heart heavy. But when he reached the place of the tall palm, Okoro was gone. The swamp was still, as though it had swallowed him whole. The next morning, the villagers searched, but there was no trace. Only his machete lay at the root of the palm, its blade darkened with rust overnight. From that day, the palms of Obil grew ordinary. Their sap was no sweeter than that of any other village. No tapper dared whistle to the trees again. Emeka, now grown into a man, carried the memory like a scar, the image of spirits with glowing eyes, the sound of a whistle that bent the night, and the truth that palm wine, once sweet as rain, had flowed with the price of blood.